to basically bring resources together to ensure that we were going to provide a safety net for folks. As part of the statewide Texas workforce system, we ensure that state and federally funded programs support economic development and workforce readiness. Workforce Solutions Alamo is more than a job resource. We are a strategic partner, and you're seeing that partnership again here today. And so as of December of 2024, we had about 38,000 or so federal government employees in this region, including both military and civilian employees. We've been partnering with Joint Base San Antonio that has the largest major or military installation in the area that has approximately about 67,000 direct employees, with about 32,000 active duty military personnel and about 35,000 civilian employees. I mentioned that just to give you sort of the magnitude of what we're prepared to deal with and what we're prepared to in partnership go alongside to ensure that that are necessary to ensure that we don't have any adverse effects to our community. Total civilian force in San Antonio and the New Braunfels area is about 1.2 million. So with non-military federal employees constituting almost about 3% of that. The good news is that we've had job growth in the region. So over the course of the last 2 years, approximately about close to 50,000 jobs that have been added, in large part because of the individuals that you see here that are actively setting up the context for economic development to continue to happen in this region. We understand that job loss can be an unexpected challenge, and the WSA is here to provide immediate reemployment support to those affected. We've been partnering again with Joint Base San Antonio, and we're prepared to have the forming of a task force to support those that are going to be laid off as federal employees. We're committed to working together with local leaders, employers, and community organizations, such as Project Quest, that's here also in the audience. WSA is here to provide services to those laid off employees through a number of services. So we have our rapid response services, our unemployment benefits assistance, upscaling and training jobs, hiring events and job fairs. We also even have our mobile unit, which is referred to as our Workforce One bus that will be going to location to location to serve those that are affected. WSA provides a wide range of services to all job seekers, including career coaching, resume assistance, interview preparation. And today we have about 4,000 or so jobs posted in work in Texas for this particular region. We are proud to be collaborating with local, state, and federal partners as we ensure that workers have resources for much needed long-term success. One of the things that we would like to announce today is in partnership with the San Antonio Food Bank, we are going to be hosting an upcoming hiring event specifically for those federal employees that have been affected. Will be located at the San Antonio Food Bank on April 17th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We ask that our partners, either our media partners, our nonprofit network, as well as the general community, to please help us get the word out. But we also encourage employers that are actively looking for individuals with qualified skill sets to come and participate in this event. Lastly, I just want to mention, in regards to anyone that's affected by these cuts, to please visit our website at workforcesolutionsalamo.org, and also to call our helpline, which is 210-224 HELP. That's 210-224-4357. Again, thank you to the mayor and the city council members for your leadership. WSA is steadfast and willing to partner and to continue to provide the best economic context for these folks that are going to be affected. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite Mike Ramsey, who's our steadfast partner with Ready to Work in the city's Ready to Work program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our mayor, city council members, and Adrian, all for your leadership today. Ready to Work is here to help. This collaboration that we've established with Workforce Solutions Alamo is the largest partner within Ready to Work. Project Quest, Alamo Colleges, Restore Education, a plethora of other institutions like the Food Bank and YWCA, Monse, and Chrysalis Ministries, and so forth and so on. stand ready to assist our federally impacted workers. We know that our memorandum of understanding with Joint Base San Antonio and Workforce Solutions Alamo has given us a head start. We have the resources, the infrastructure in place to pivot and assist those federally impacted workers utilizing the facilities at the bases here in San Antonio. We know that our largest employer in the region is Joint Base San Antonio and their sub-organizations that are hubbed through those military installations here in San Antonio. And we want to stand poised to let the locally impacted workers know they're not alone. City of San Antonio, our local employers stand ready to assist. Our priority during this moment of uncertainty is to provide a coordinated effort between the city's Workforce Development Office and our local workforce ecosystem, including our Ready to Work partners. San Antonio Ready to Work is a valuable resource with numerous collaborations, all working relationships or entities across the city with one common goal: to help people who are seeking employment opportunities to connect to them. One of the most impactful things that the Workforce Development Initiative has accomplished is bringing together employers, training providers, and support agencies to respond to local issues such as this. We've established relationships with over 550 local businesses right here in San Antonio who pledged their support to Ready to Work. We've already begun surveying those employers, so laying the groundwork for connecting those federally impacted workers, some mid-career, some senior career, to opportunities that exist in their vacancies right here in San Antonio. We want to keep that talent here. That's the overarching theme of what we have to say during this time. Our employers need your talents. Our employers need your experience. The hotline that Adrian Lopez announced today with Workforce Solutions Alamo is our way of collecting that information. We don't get any federal report. There's no document. There's no list anywhere that tells us who all has been impacted. So our first goal is to find out who needs our assistance. So that hotline is going to be our first line of being able to pull together a database of individuals to understand what their experiences are, what their talent is, to be able to connect them to those local employers. Those local employers, dozens, have already responded, stating that they want to operate. They want to be a part of the hiring fair. They want to be a part of utilizing their resources to be able to offer their vacancies to this talent pool. Traditional and Ready to Work, we're helping people transition to new entry-level careers. With this group, they're experienced workers who have a talent set that many of our employers have been seeking to fill locally. So we're going to take this opportunity to make sure that that demand that those employers have matches with the supply that's being now pushed out into our local workforce ecosystem. To that end, we want to hear from those individuals themselves so we can assess how broadly our areas of city have been impacted. The hotline will be the first line of defense in order to make that happen because, again, city staff is unaware of what those actual numbers are at this point. Some of these impacted federal workers may be interested in training for a new job, which is what Ready to Work in. If they're a mid-career or end-of-career person that's looking to transition to something different, we've got 84 occupations that our local employers have said we need workers in. And Ready to Work stands poised to help. Our contractors, Workforce Solutions Alamo, Project Quest, Alamo College and Restore, our prime agencies, be ready to intake those individuals. We'll make sure that those individuals are treated in the same way we do our transitioning military members. If they've lost their job and their income level has gone to zero, Ready to Work is poised to help those individuals to get on track quickly. They may want to connect directly to employment, which is where our partnership with Workforce Solutions Alamo and our local food bank and this hiring fair as the first stop in these resource hiring events that will take place. We stand poised and ready to assist no matter which direction. Ready to Work and the city are here to help. You can go to readytoworksa.com or call 311 if you want to get started today if you've been impacted. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. So in closing, just let me thank you. Thank again our city organization that includes Mike Ramsey and the whole Workforce Development Office, as well as my colleagues, Councilmember Pelaez and Councilmember Rocha Garcia, and of course, Workforce Solutions and all of the partners in the workforce development ecosystem that we have that have stepped up. San Antonio is a community of service. We have so many San Antonio families who have chosen a life of service, and a disproportionate number of those are in federal service. And so I overheard a conversation the other day in reaction to some of this conversation about federal job loss. And people in that conversation were of this belief that services to help our federal employees here in San Antonio were actually going to help San Antonians. These are San Antonio families whose lives have been upended by some of these arbitrary actions by the Trump administration. And so just as we do when we hit crises or we hit challenges along the way, San Antonio as a community rallies together and we provide help. That's exactly what this is, whether it's a pandemic or it's a self-inflicted wounds by a presidential administration. We are going to stand in the breach and make sure that we provide services to help families in need. So with that, any of us are up here for questions. Well, I mean, I'll give you my perspective, and as I said before, so many San Antonio families, and these are San Antonio residents for decades and decades, sometimes lifetimes, rely on a federal paycheck because they have chosen a life of service in the federal government. Many of them are veterans in this community who have served their country, making, in some cases, the choice to make the ultimate sacrifice for this country, and have now been given their arbitrary pink slip. So, you know, it's going to have a real impact, just like any other San Antonio family who we are trying to reach through the Ready to Work program. They need an opportunity now to get back on their feet through employment. And sometimes that requires training. Sometimes that simply requires a portal to call to know that there's services for job placement and getting through the hard times. But it is real impact. And for those who are not affected, who think that this is not their problem, we are all connected. And so these issues come home to roost for this entire community when we're not able to serve people their basic needs. That's why we have the food bank here and so many other organizations that work very hard to provide a safety net for folks in need. So it's going to have impact up and down the line. And I'm happy to turn it over to my colleagues who want to paint another picture, or perhaps Mike or Adrian.
So I'll just share to your question. So the other day I was block walking and a woman answered her door and I said, "You have a lovely home," and she let me in and she said, "But I'm a federal employee." And she's like, "I'd like to talk to you." And so I stepped in and then she called her son out, and her son is also a federal employee. She is a single mom. She was worried because she doesn't know when her last paycheck will be. So when I mentioned earlier in general about people don't know when their last paycheck will be, she's a woman that I have in mind. Her son was very excited about a year and a half ago, she said, when they finally got to move out of their family member's house and buy their own home. She's very worried that she's going to lose that home. So this is just what we call a cascade of effects. And so people who might not be able, or who are barely making it right now, if they lose that source of income, what happens if they have to move out, if they have to move to a different apartment? We know that the housing supply is in shortage. We know that there's not enough affordable and workforce housing. And so, again, it's a cascading effect. We know that the food bank is also being affected by some of the policies. What happens when there's no food at the racks on the food at the food bank to be able to assist these people? So we've got to tell these stories, and we've got to connect them with very real people, because like the mayor says, there are people who have said, "Well, how do you know that you're affecting San Antonians?" I know because I'm block walking. I know because I'm walking on doors. Councilman Pelayo is doing the same thing. We hear this firsthand. We're going to restaurants. We already see that some restaurants are empty. Why do you think that is? We live in San Antonio. We have very real situations. The other day I was at one of my local restaurants. A gentleman said that he was leaving. He was scared about what was going on at the federal level, and he decided instead to go back home, is what he said. He had been here for years, living here, working at a restaurant, and now he's decided that and it was very important to say, because let me say this, because he said, this country is no longer welcoming. He said, "You all are in San Antonio. I know you all take care of me, but I don't feel that I'm welcome in this country anymore." So again, it's multiple effects. Our small businesses will be affected. If we think about the jobs, right, that for instance, the Defense Department has created, if there's changes there, how will our workforce be affected as well? So just, again, some very real things that we hear and see every day on the streets. And I'd invite any one of you to come block walking with me to see this, right, and to listen to these stories. Sí, absolutamente. Mire, temprano comenté que hubo una abuela. Esta mañana estuve yo en el doctor. Vino una abuela y me dijo, Concejal, yo sé que usted es concejal. Quiero comentarle que si cortan unos de los programas federales, yo tengo miedo que se me muera mi nieto, porque dependemos de asistencia federal. Entonces, lo que está pasando hoy, sí nos estamos preocupando por los empleados federales, pero estamos también ayudando a nuestra comunidad. Por ejemplo, hace unas cuantas semanas estuve yo con una señora que había comprado su casita hace como un año y medio. Ella y su hijo dependen de un trabajo en el gobierno federal. Entonces ella me dijo, ¿qué pasa si perdemos la casa? Bueno, si perdemos el trabajo, perdemos la casa, primero. Sabemos que no hay suficientes viviendas asequibles para las personas que necesitan ayuda. Entonces es importante pensar, ¿a dónde van a ir esas familias? ¿Qué va a pasar? Sabemos que ya los bancos el banco, por ejemplo, de alimentos, ya también ha sido afectado. ¿Qué va a pasar cuando no haya suficiente alimentos para ayudar a esas personas que ya no van a tener trabajo, que se pierdan el empleo y que no van a poder proveer por sus familias?
Great question, and it's twofold. Primarily, for those individuals who are seeking direct employment, that's where our partnership with Workforce Solutions Alamo comes in, and the hiring fair. Ready to Work Again has over 550 pledged employers. We're surveying those employers to find out who's interested in participating in events like that, who have openings that may be aligned with what the skill set these federally impacted employees have. So we want to help them make that connection or facilitate that connection. That takes no resources away from the target population of Ready to Work. Then you have the second group, those individuals who have lost their jobs. Those individuals who lost their job, who live in San Antonio and otherwise meet our eligibility criteria, are our target audience. Anybody in this community who's seeking assistance through Ready to Work, who meets that criteria, we want to support. So we want those federally impacted workers to know that, yes, Ready to Work is for them. What those levels are, you have to live in the city of San Antonio. You have to be eligible to work, which all of these individuals are. And your individual household income has to be less than 250% of the federal poverty level. You have to be committed to doing the work, going to education and training, and being connected to local employment and one of our targeted occupations. So if those individuals fit that criteria and their income level, again, has gone from wherever it was in the federal government down to zero, those people need our help, and Ready to Work is poised to assist.
El plan es, con un poco de urgencia, afán, identificar a las personas que han perdido sus trabajos por las eliminaciones de esos puestos decididas en Washington, D.C. Es identificarlos y después conectarlos de inmediato con estos dos programas para que ya empiecen ya a aplicar para trabajos que necesitan de la pericia y de la experiencia y el conocimiento de esta gente. No olvidemos que esta gente de la que estamos hablando son los sanantonianos, son padres de familia, mandan a sus hijos a las mismas escuelas que yo mando a mis hijos, van a las mismas iglesias y son merecedores del respeto, la dignidad y de la asistencia gubernamental, como lo son todos cuando se ven en una condición de vulnerabilidad. Entonces, para eso existe el gobierno municipal, para echar la mano y para hacer palanca cuando se necesita hacer palanca. Y estas dos organizaciones, Ready to Work y WSA, son dos palancas poderosas y lo que le estamos pidiendo a la gente que ha perdido su trabajo, y no solamente tiene que ser la gente que ha perdido su trabajo porque la Casa Blanca decidió sí, puede ser cualquier persona en San Antonio que ha perdido su trabajo. Por favor, llamen a estas dos organizaciones y aprovechen de ellas y díganles, quiero trabajar, quiero un trabajo. Y para eso existen y son muy buenos en esa labor.
Yeah, so one of the challenges, and I think it was mentioned earlier that we are having, is that private employers are required by law to be able to provide us a notice. It's called a WARN notice. The if they're going to lay off 50 or more employees. They're required by law to provide that notice to the leadership, to local elected officials, as well as the workforce board. That is not happening with the federal government, so that's a challenge associated with who is being laid off, how many people are being laid off, where are they being laid off, when are they being laid off, what kind of positions are being laid off. And so that's why this particular announcement today is extremely important, because I think, one, as a collaborative here, we're saying, if you're affected, please let us know so that we can provide assistance. In regards to the overall numbers, it's about 3% of the 1.2 or 1.3 million people in the labor force. Earlier there was a conversation about sort of the importance of people losing their paycheck. Just a quick reminder of what happened in the pandemic. We were at about 3.5% unemployment the last 2 weeks of February 2020. That shot up in March to about 13% unemployment. Literally thousands of jobs that got eliminated. In one industry, we saw $1 billion worth of disposable income just vanish, literally within weeks. We don't think that's going to be the impact here. However, there will still be an impact associated with disposable income, people's ability to be able to provide for their families and for themselves. We just don't know what that number is, and we just don't know the impact at the moment.
And Brian, I'd also point out that the federal government itself can't answer any of those questions either.
So there's a number of strategies associated. One is to be able to let residents know that you're not alone and that you do have some resources. There are two systems associated with, for example, unemployment insurance. There's a federal unemployment insurance for those federal employees or service members that are being transitioned or being potentially pushed out, because there is a portion of military folks that we understand are also being pushed out, right? So that is, those are databases, but by virtue of having to sign up for unemployment benefits, you do have to sort of provide all the information. We also have a Texas-based unemployment system that employees and employers pay into for situations like this. We get the benefit of the access of that database and all of that information. So, for example, the latest numbers that were released on Friday, we're at 3.8% unemployment of about 1.3 million people. That's about 40,000 people in the region or so that are unemployed, that are looking for a job. We have access to all of that data and to that information to be able to target those individuals in terms of marketing efforts, opportunities to bring them resources, to invite them to, for example, we had a hiring fair just this Saturday with Boeing at our newest center at Port San Antonio. We had probably close to 200 people that attended. It's a combination of all of those things to be able to sort of provide resources. Some folks, as Mike was mentioning, may need just some limited assistance with updating a resume or going through some workshops. Some folks may need a little bit more assistance in terms of like going from one career track to another career track, which may require training and those types of things. The important thing here is for folks to understand that there are resources available, and for them not to deselect themselves, for them to be able to get engaged with Ready to Work or with the city resources, as well as with Workforce Solutions Alamo, because we want to make sure that we are providing a platform for those folks to transition. Much like what we did during the pandemic. We didn't fully understand what the impact was going to be during the pandemic. What we understood was that we were going to be working closely together with our partners and with city leaders and county leaders to ensure that we actually provided the context for the best possible transition.
Megan, I'll just add something. The CCR that Councilman Pelaez and I filed, the reemployment assistance for federal talent. Very purposeful in the name, a raft, and so you try to give someone a raft to help them in a possibly life-depending situation. And this is exactly what we're intending to do. We're trying to reach out to employers that we know are looking to hire talent, that we know have come and have said we will participate in the Ready to Work program. We need employees. Maybe they weren't able to hire the folks that went through the program, but maybe this is another opportunity to re-engage and connect with people in our areas. And so another part of that CCR was specifically city employees that are federally grant funded. And as a matter of fact, yesterday, and again, to people who say, well, how do you know that they're in San Antonio? Yesterday I knocked again on the door, and it was another woman, and she works for our Head Start program here in the city of San Antonio. She was very worried as well. If Head Start, for instance, is cut for the city, $23 million are going away. That includes a lot of employees. There's 758 city employees who are federally grant funded. So again, we were very purposeful with the raft, and again, trying to give someone just a little bit of help.
Are the 550 employers that y'all have spoken with, are those ones y'all have spoken with recently within the last couple of weeks, or is that the Ready to Work program in general over the last however long?
That's the Ready to Work program in general. 550 employers that have pledged to support. We've reached out to those 550 employers and already received several dozen responses back from those employers stating that they want to do their part to absorb that talent.
And that's within the last couple of weeks?
That's just within the last couple of days.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the announcements, of course, is that the upcoming hiring fair. As we get to understanding a little bit more details associated with the impact and the number of folks that are going to be impacted by wedding, we'll continue to plan out, and we'll continue to organize additional types of events. And so definitely a media push and social media push is going to be part of those overall efforts. So definitely this community, and I'll let the mayor speak to sort of the unprecedented investment that they're making, right, which is probably very unique for when compared to other cities that may also be adversely affected. So I'll let the mayor speak in regards to Ready to Work resources. In terms of workforce solutions, Alamo, last year we served upwards of about 100,000 people that came to our 16 career centers. Some of those are light touch. Some of those are, utilizing just our resources to be able to have access to digital assets like computers and phones and those types of things. But we also put in, a few thousand folks into training programs as part of, for example, with Ready to Work and others. And so we'll have resources for the moment. We don't know ultimately the impact that we're going to see. But I think it's incumbent upon the leadership to keep informed about what that impact is potentially going to be, and that's why this partnership is important, so we can feed that information to the elected officials so they, in turn, can seek out those resources from some manner.
And let me just add one thing at the end and we'll wrap up. We have resources to connect people to jobs, and we know there are jobs in the private sector, multiple industries that are open. In some cases, there needs to be a bridge, whether it's training or job placement services, and that's where programs like Ready to Work come in. There is going to be a reckoning with regard to the social safety net that is collapsing due to the federal government's actions. The downstream impacts that are going to be falling hardest on vulnerable members of this community as a result of federal agencies basically being imploded. So that is another aspect of the directive that I've issued to our management, is that we have to convene our social safety net providers and make sure that there's a proper backstop for those providers in this community that serve people in most desperate need, whether it's food services, housing services, child care services, and the like. The big issue here, beyond just the employment issue, is the catastrophic conditions in which many of the nonprofit community is going to be in with regard to being able to serve their populations. And those are all San Antonio families as well. So we're going to work upstream on the employment issues, and we've got a lot of work to do downstream with the social safety net. Thank you all very much, and we're going to be available for questions.
Yes.
Group.
Yeah.
Quick question.